Hi, Ian. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Nicole. How are you doing today?
Not bad, not bad. I'm not in Vancouver, so I'm not as good as you, but
You still have a team in the playoffs, so you're doing better than I am.
so you know what? Tell me, you're out there in, doing sales consulting work. What's the biggest mistake you see department heads dealing with in the corporate realm?
It really ranges, Nicole, and often by size of company. Typically in larger organizations, there's more volatile turnover. So it's like being a coach of a hockey team. If you make the playoffs, you've got a job, at least for another year. If you don't, there's going to be change. So quite often, mistakes I see larger companies make is when there is turnover, they throw the baby out with the bathwater. They change everything. They strip it down to the bare bones. They have little patience to look out for what are the best practices in place already to save those and to sharpen
Hmm.
those going forward. And they just start over. It's like a home renovation. In smaller companies, more regional, I find that the mistakes can be that they take too long on something. And that's because of relationships they've got with folks they've been working with for years and years. So when there's a leadership change, that's time to make improvement. And I think we've got to assess before we implement and before we move to management. And oftentimes that first step, Nicole, of assessment, assess the situation, the target customer, your sales team. Do you have the right people in place? Do you have the right outside help, like some of the services you provide? Have you got the right team to achieve your goals? And quite often they just get on the treadmill and they try and run faster, and they might be running in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and it's hard for them to sit down and say, you know what, I need to really assess what's going on because it's stressful, right? So how would you get them to assess these types of issues?
Well, that's what I've been doing for 20 plus years is conducting two kinds of assessment. One is a customer assessment where I interview my customers' clients. Good, I call that the good, the bad, the ugly. Some good ones, some ones that are challenging, and some that got away to find out really what the value proposition is. What is the strengths? What is the weaknesses? Where is the room for improvement? I do a lot of sales team assessment where I come in and I interview the sales team and I write a recommendation report on what the situation is. I assess their ability to speak value, their sales process, the tools, the skill sets, and sales management. I put together something called the sales talent scorecard, which is basically it starts with, and as a third party, an objective third party, it's a far better place to look instead of an internal review, which doesn't really lend itself to objectivity. Whoever's got the best relationship is going to get favored. And that's, I don't look at that at all. I look at, all right, what are the criteria that makes for good in this organization? Let's score your people and find out what your baseline average is. And then decisions happen. I've had a situation not too long ago in New York about a year ago where I assessed a sales organization, and of the seven salespeople, six are no longer with the company. They weren't getting it done in terms of
Hmm.
where the company wanted to go. So we had to rehire, retrain, and coach, and we've more than tripled the baseline average of the sales talent scorecard by looking at it objectively. Because one thing to say, here's our strategy, here's our target customers, we've got great people like Nicole helping us with the lead gen and filling the pipeline. But if the sales reps don't know how to pull them through, qualify them, and win in the sales pipeline, then we're only as strong as our weakest link, and quite often it can be the sales team.
Right. And what about the customer service or operations team? Because they work hand in hand with
They
sales.
absolutely do, especially customer service. And depending on the style of business, oftentimes there could be a part of operations, perhaps engineering, that play a role with sales support as well, designing products, managing velocity of manufacturing, those types of things. But customer service typically plays the role with serving the customer, oftentimes doing the proposals. And so they're a heavy link into it as well. and need to be considered when you're assessing, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of the issues can happen when there's feedback that's not so friendly and they're stuck dealing with it. And the sales team is just happy, hey, I got my sale, my part's done, and it's not really done.
No, it's
Right?
never done. Even if all we sell is a product, Nicole, I always say this: everything we do in sales is actually a service. Because yes, they might get the product, but if we do a lousy job of follow-up, of responsiveness, of on-site service and support, we can be thrown out even with the best product. So service is also really a part of the bigger equation for any customer.
For sure, for sure. So, Ian, what industries do you typically target for your business?
Well, I guess when I started 25 years ago, after spending 10 years with Apple, my professional network was in the tech business. So I've got many clients in technology around the world, Vodafone in Europe, as an example, Microsoft across Canada, did a lot of work with HP. Prior to them being HP, Compaq was a client as well. So it started off as tech, but what I've found is best sales practices have no home. It's like it doesn't matter what you're selling. You can take those sales best practices, the process, the methodology, the surrounding performance components to it, and transfer it to industry. So, been active in financial services, manufacturing, professional services, executive recruiting. So I've done lots of different industries. I guess to date, over 17,000 trained in 8 countries over the last 25 years. And I'm still having a good time.
Well, that's the most important part. Thank you
Uh,
so much. So, what's the best place for people to reach you?
the best place for people to reach out, either on LinkedIn, if that's convenient. I'm Ian Selbie, or at my website, which is Sales Mentor U. So the word sales mentor with just a U on the end, .com. That's my website. I've got lots of free resources there on sales, guides and books and podcasts of my own. Feel free to help yourself or reach out to me directly at ian@ianselby.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole. Have a great day.
You too.